Welcome to the Artful Teaching Podcast. I'm your host today, Heather Francis, and I'm excited to introduce our guests who are here to talk about hoop dancing and their experiences sharing hoop dance, writing lesson plans about hoop dance, and working with hoop dancers. So we have Emily Soderborg and Kelina Anderson and Jamie Kalama Wood here. So please, ladies, will you introduce yourself, tell us who you are, and what you would like people to know about you?
My name is Kelina Anderson. I am from Spanish Fork. I am part of the Squamish tribe, which is part of the Salish Nation in British Columbia. I am also part white and part Hawaiian as well.
So I'm Emily Soderborg. I am a music specialist. I have been teaching for many years. I also have a degree in elementary ed, and I have a master's degree in music education. I work for the BYU Arts Partnership, and I work on integrated lessons, and I am working specifically on the Native American Curriculum Initiative and the lesson plans with that.
Hi, I am Jamie Kalama Wood. I am Native Hawaiian and Mexican and white, and I have strong family connections to the Sioux and Navajo nations. I am the artistic director of a group called Living Legends, and we specialize in cultural dance specifically for Native American and Polynesian and Native Latin dances. And I'm privileged to be working with BYU Arts as a partner, especially with the Native American Curriculum Initiative.
So, Kelina, you are a student at Brigham Young University, correct?
Yeah, I am.
And you dance on Living Legends?
Yes, I am part of the Native section for Living Legends.
Awesome. So I want to start with a question to you about the part you've played in collaboration with the BYU Arts Partnership and the lesson plan that has been developed on hoop dancing. And then we'll just extend that question to Jamie and Emily as well. What have you guys been working on?
So I remember last year we had this Zoom meeting, and we had other Native American hoop dancers as well, like Patrick Willie. And it was really a good conversation. It was a conversation that really let educators know like how to teach hoop and how to teach just Native American culture in general. And so one of my favorite things about it was just the way to talk about the circle, the hoop in general, and how we were able to really talk about the sacredness of it and how kids can see the visuals with hoop as they watch hoop dancers, kind of showcasing the creative side of the Native culture.
Great. Emily, what do you remember about those meetings? You were in that meeting asking the questions, I assume.
Yes, I was. So Jamie and I met a year ago in October, so October 2020. And she shared a promo video of a hoop dancer for China Spectacular that we then started doing research on. We had a student intern that was helping us, and then we set up the meeting with all of the different hoop dancers. Kelina was one of them that we asked questions to. And so based on that, we asked questions what would be appropriate, and we shared ideas of where we might go developing lesson plans for the different art forms, a lesson in music, a lesson in dance, a lesson in drama, a lesson in visual arts, and just some of our initial ideas, asking questions if it would be appropriate, if they had ideas of ways that we could share. And so in the course of a year, we have developed one lesson plan that's been published. We have two lesson plans that are in the final stages of being published, and one that we're back revising after going through it with the hoop dancers. So we're excited about that.
So you say you wanted to know if it was appropriate. Can you explain more what specifically you were hoping was appropriate? And maybe, Kelina, you can address this too, but is it appropriate for students to learn to hoop dance?
So from the research that we found and from our interaction with different hoop dancers, we've worked really closely with Terry Godell, who is this last year, he is the national champion for the senior division of the hoop dance, the World Hoop Dance competition held at the Heard Museum. And he shared with us that to hoop dance, it really is done by many different tribal nations across North America. And those who learn to hoop dance must use the proper materials and carefully learn the dance steps. it's not learned in a class, and we can talk to Kelina and Jamie about how the hoop dance is learned, but really it's a sacred dance, and it's meant to be shared by members of the different Native cultures in which it originated. Dancers view the hoop dance and its teachings as a gift from them to their audience. And to ensure that only Natives are participating in these hoop dance contests, Terry shared that it's usually a requirement for each participant to identify their Native roots by presenting a tribal enrollment card. There are, however, some situations in which non-Natives can respectfully participate in the hoop dance, but these are exceptions, not the rule. And they're unique situations, and they don't apply to classrooms.
Yeah, kind of going along with that, the hoop dance is sacred. And it is this, I like how it was put, like, it is a gift. I learned hoop dance through my dad, who learned hoop dance from being on Living Legends, which used to be called Late Midnight Generation when he was here. And Living Legends is a gift. It is a beautiful gift. It is stories that are part of us, that we can share on the stage and that we can share with our audience. And so with the hoop dance, my dad taught it to me and my brothers, and I grew up kind of learning here and there through him. And then as I got to BYU, as I got onto Living Legends, I started growing a lot more because I was picking up more hoops, and I was learning a lot more through other hoop dancers. It's kind of like this chain reaction of like how you learn is through others who know it and they teach you, and then you go on, you teach as well. My uncle, who is on the reservation down in Blanding, he is definitely a very strong advocate for education and for learning. And he has a lot of sayings where they teach you and you teach others. What you take, you also give. And so that was definitely something that I found prominent as I was learning, was that these hoop dancers who've learned from other hoop dancers, they will teach you, and then you go and you teach other Natives as well. And it is something that is continuing and growing. The hoop world is constantly just getting bigger because more people see it and more people are exposed to it, and more people are like, wow, this is beautiful. This is something different. This is something that's rich. And so other people will see that, and then they will want to take a part of it. And usually it's the Native American people who see that. Some people who didn't necessarily grow up learning about Native culture, and then they'll get a little bit taste of it, and then they'll just like want more and more. And it's usually those people who see hoop dance and are like, that is something different that I like. And it is this, you'll get it from other hoop dancers, and then it just continues. And even though it's not taught in a classroom setting, it is something that still educates and still goes forth. It doesn't need to be at a school or a university. It is something that's in you that you give out to the world.
It's also important to note that Living Legends is a unique setting. Typically, the hoop dance would be passed down person to person, often generation to generation, parent to child. And so there's a story that goes with it. And each story is unique to that person or those persons. And so as the story is passed down, they pass their story down. So it's not just the dance, but is passing this story. So with the Living Legends, even though we are not necessarily all family, there is a very familial relationship there, and we treat each other like family. And so it's a similar situation where we have that passing it down and telling our stories as we pass it down. And we're also very careful. I had one message from a dancer who was beautiful dancer. He's a stunning dancer, and he was with us for just 1 year. And actually, one semester he had some health issues where he couldn't join us the second semester, and he was cast to be dancing with the Native dancers. Now, for him, he was super excited to be there, but he was very aware of being respectful because he was one of the very few in that section who was not Native. I don't ask people what they are. many people volunteer that, but we do ask for a cultural connection. And he was Latin, but he was dancing with the natives. And he was taught hoop dance. And mostly just because he had such desire, as Kelina was talking about, we notice people who have this deep desire and love for it and great deal of respect. And then he went back a little further and discovered actually he does have family who are native, that down his generations on his Mexican side. And so he called me and was like, I need to tell you this. He's like, I wanted to be respectful. I didn't know if I would quite fit in. He's like, but it meant so much to him to know that he felt like he had some sort of connection. He does not have a card. So he doesn't go around and say like, I'm a hoop dancer. He's still very respectful. But he feels like through dance, he's able to connect with those who've gone before. And I think because your stories get passed down through hoop dance, through many of our dances, but especially hoop dance, then there is this connection to something so much more than just yourself, right? There's a history there, there's a line, there's a lineage. Whether or not that is familiar or your hoop lineage, you can find out where it comes from and where you are, and then you make it your own.
Kind of with that whole lineage part, I know like hoops, now we use like plastic tubing for our hoops, but they...
Don't tell our secrets.
Okay. So we use materials, but hoops used to be made out of reed. And when I started learning, I used reed, and because that's what my dad used. And there's a certain connection when you're doing your hoops. Obviously, when you're dancing with them, you're connected with them. But when you are making them, they're hard work to make. You have to put in effort, and it takes a while. I would go through TV show after TV show while making my hoops just because I needed something to pass the time as I was working with it. But they used to be made out of reed, and reed breaks easily. And so you have to constantly take care of them. And my dad used to have so many reed hoops, enough for me. And I have 6 brothers, and I'm the only girl, and we all dance. And so we grew up just having to learn how to take care of them. And it was constantly like, okay, who's going to soak the hoops in the tub this time? And okay, let's get the hoops out. And we need to make sure that they're not broken. And so you have to put work into it. And so you put yourself into your hoop. And the way that there's some people who tape their hoops certain ways that showcase if they've gone through a trial, they'll do a certain color of hoop, like a certain color of tape on their hoop for that. And so they put themselves into their hoops. And a lot of the times your hoops will be passed down to your kids or passed down to your family. And it's your stories that are being passed down with them. So it's your generation. It is your work that is put into your hoops that is connecting everyone. And these hoops are connected throughout the dance and to make different shapes. And you are putting yourself in your story with your generation, with your family. Your hoops are a part of you and a part of your family. It is more than just, all right, here's the material, here is what you use to make your hoops. It is more than that. It is your spirit with it.
And then I just have a question for Kelina, actually. So even though we do use the plastic ones now, and it's not just our group, by the way, I just want to make sure that's clear. So everyone, now that's the hoop standard. There are people who still practice making hoops with reeds, but it's, as Kelina was saying, very time intensive. So most people, especially for competition, will use the plastic hoops or for just day to day because those reed ones are so special. But even the plastic ones take so much time to make. Like they don't come pre-made as a circle, right? You're taking tubing, hard tubing that's difficult to move. You're putting that together and then you are decorating it with colors according to who you are, like what represents you. And every little detail on it, whether it goes around the hoop or if it goes along the edge of the hoop, like every little detail about where you place those colors, or if you choose to keep it mostly white, like that means something to the dancer. So my question for you, Kelina, is how long does it take to make even the plastic ones?
Ooh, that is such a long, hard process because I am still like repairing my hoops in the process. Like it's been long. I've made so many hoops. I would say just doing one hoop will take you at least like 3 hours if you want it to be good. So that's just one. And usually you'll dance with like 8 or 16. I've danced with 23 at one time. And so it is a long process to do all of those hoops. And the materials don't just come cheap. Tubing costs a lot. And then you have to find like the right connector for it to make sure that it stays in that hoop formation. And that is a process in itself. I've gone to so many places trying to find the right connector for it. And even the other day I was talking to one of my hoop friends and he was like, oh yeah, I just like melted a little bit and then I put it in and I'm like, that makes so much sense. I did not even think about it. So it's a process and it's a working process. And then you're sitting there and you grab your tape and you're just taping it around and around and around. And so it's important to know why you're doing it as you're doing it. Nobody just wants to sit there and just, okay, I'm just going to tape. I'm just going to tape now. You have to know your purpose on why you're doing it. I dance for those who can't. I dance for many reasons. Whenever I was younger, I saw living legends perform. My dad did it, and so I grew up watching it, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the hoopers. They are amazing dancers, and I knew. When I was like 6, I was like, I am going to be on that stage, and I am going to dance hoop. I am going to do that. And so when I'm sitting there and I'm doing this long process, I remember why I'm doing it, because I want to share this culture. I want to be able to let people know that they have identity. And Living Legends is such a beautiful show that teaches that for anybody. You don't even have to be Native or Latin or Polynesian. And so I was making my hoops. That was something that I was always remembering. I am doing this to share that message.
That's really beautiful and a very unique mission and dance culture and community and family that you have at Living Legends. You've talked about stories being passed from generation to generation, that the stories are in the hoops, are in the dance. I also understand that the dance tells a story. And in the lesson plan that has been written and published, it says that there are many stories of where the hoop dance originates from, and that the hoop dance isn't always done the same way, depending on a dancer's background and where the dance is being done. And similarly, the stories about the hoop dance also change. So could you give some examples of what stories are told through the hoop dance?
I'll go so Kelina can have a little extra time. And then I think Emily has heard many of the stories that people use. So there are a number of stories, but one of my favorite actually comes from Terry Godell, who we mentioned earlier. That is the current champion in the senior hoop dance. But so his family story is one that his son, Michael, also uses, as well as his daughter. And because he's passed it down to multiple children, right? But it's one of an eaglet, so a baby eagle, and the eaglet is born. And then as you go through the hoop dance, it's this eagle discovering the world. So you have the nest. You see the nest in the dance as the eaglet is finding its wings. You see that happening. And then as it starts to fly out and discover the world, you see creatures. You can even see a cowboy, right? You can see all sorts of different aspects. And Emily, you could probably even speak more to the story, but the whole point is it's this eaglet discovering the world. And eventually that comes all together. Yeah. Kelina, do you want to, or Emily?
I'll just share a little bit more about the Godell family story, and then I'll let Kelina share her story as well. So Terry says it's a story of progression. It's a story of how the eagle grows until it's a full-grown eagle, and the experiences that it has with different plants and animals that help it discover its identity as a great eagle.
Maybe this is getting too specific, but my imagination is being tickled. Does the eagle grow up in the dance? Does he become a full eagle in the end?
Yes, he does grow up in the dance. So in the dance, you can see like just one wing going. And as you add hoops, you come to a bigger eagle shape. And so you see the eagle progressing and the different experiences that it's having, according to the Godel family story.
So with my family, it was more of just appreciation for nature. That was kind of our story that we would tell. My dad and my mom were always very like, you take care of this earth. This earth was made for you. You take care of it. And so as I was learning hoop dance, we always started with one, and then we got bigger and bigger and bigger. And so it was kind of the story of your gratitude getting bigger as you learn. And so for us, it started with the one, and then we would go on to other things. And it was really about the shapes for us. It was about like making the flowers, or like even the chickens, or making baskets in it. And especially the eagle. The eagle is such a prime symbol for natives because our feathers are made out of eagle feathers, and you earn those. And so our story was about being grateful for the world, earning the world, and then seeing the spiritual side of it, because we strongly believe that everything has such a beautiful, sacred spirit. And so we wanted to pay tribute to that as we danced. And so that was kind of our story, was paying tribute to the spirits of the beautiful earth that we dance on. And in the end, it was always very important for us to have two worlds, that we finished with two worlds. We could do many different things throughout the dance as we are adding more hoops, going from 1 to 3 to 5 to 8 to 10 to 23. And then we always finished with two worlds, one symbolizing the world that we live on now, and then another, the spiritual world, which was very important to me because when I was younger, I lost a younger brother. And when I danced, I could feel him. I could feel his love. And so when I created these two worlds, I was like, he lives on that one and I'm here, but they're together. We dance with them together. He is with me. And that happened when I was younger. And later, my uncle, who was very in love with his native side, he passed away, and we were able to do the hoop dance at his funeral. And again, I was able to feel him, and I was able to feel his spirit as I was dancing, because we do it for the ones who can't, who we love, who pass on. And so my story was that gratitude of spirituality within everything. And so when we had those two worlds, it was, this is this world that I long to be with my family that's there, but I also have this world that I'm grateful for too. And they come together.
So I just wanted to share some of the stories that I've heard and researched. Many believe the dance originated with the Taos Pueblo people, while other tribal groups have also laid claim to helping originate the hoop dance. And although no one knows exactly when the hoop dance began, there are legends all over that describe it. So one legend, told by the Anishinaabe, who are located in what is now the United States and Canada, in the area surrounding the Great Lakes, they describe a boy who didn't like to do the things other boys his age liked to do, such as hunting and fishing. But instead, this boy spent hours watching animals in the wild. As he watched, the boy was able to begin copying the animals' movements. He added the hoops to help express the animal movements and created a dance that he then taught to others. So that's the Anishinaabe legend. There's another legend told by several North American Plains Indians communities that tells of a dying man who wants to do something that others will remember and use after he's gone. The creator, in response, gives him a single wooden hoop and tells him that for each living thing he creates with the hoop, one more hoop will be given to him. So this man uses his body and the hoop to create images, and with each added hoop, the man miraculously grows stronger. In the end, he creates the form of all other living things. So those are just two of the examples of how different the stories can be and how personal they are to the people who are sharing those stories.
I think one of the things that you find throughout hoop dance though, is the idea that as you go through the hoop dance, it adds life. And I think that comes really from that story. But as you dance through the hoop, it could add even a year to your life. And so that is a big part of it. And also, when you bring all the hoops together, so you start learning one hoop at a time. And when you have 4 hoops, you can do a lot of really cool steps. But really, it's that 5th hoop is the key. And part of the reason why is because one of the images you can now make looks like a globe. And so you have the 4 sacred directions, right? North, east, south, west, which represents all the people of the world. It represents so much. But when you have a 5th hoop, it can hold those other 4 together. And so that 5th hoop is like the Great Spirit can bring all life together and unified in one. Because you can hold the 4 together with your hand, but it won't stand on its own. So once you add that 5th hoop, that creates that image. And so regardless of the story, I think those 2 ideas are really present throughout most hoop dance that we see.
I think part of that is because the hoop dance is a sacred ceremonial dance that is a healing dance. And just like Kelina has said, so the hoop dance, even though it has changed over time, that healing nature of the dance has never changed. It is always there. And it was originally done as a ceremonial dance. And even though it is performed and even done in competitions now, the healing aspect of the dance has never changed. It's healing for those who are dancing, and it is healing for those who are watching.
I think for our educators who are listening, we've talked about who can learn hoop dance. And Emily, I think you just answered my question, which is, well, if my students can't learn hoop dance, then what am I going to teach them? Like, being an observer of hoop dance is a great educational experience. And we have 4 lesson plans and 4 different art forms to learn about the importance of the hoop dance like we're learning about. And it doesn't have to be a participatory experience in order to understand and appreciate it and to honor it.
Although the lesson plans are participatory, even though we're not dancing the hoop dance, they are very interactive, very engaging, and students are able to interact with the hoop dance in ways without them actually dancing it.
And that doesn't mean there's not dance either. So if it's a music lesson, obviously you probably won't be dancing. But we have a dance lesson about hoop dance without dancing hoop dance. Mind blown, right? But it's as educators, we understand that education needs to be interactive. There's so many studies about that, about the importance of kinesthetic learning and play learning, and how that not only reinforces learning, but it embodies learning, it improves learning, and it actually facilitates quicker learning in many cases and deeper understanding. And so you don't worry, right? If you're using these lessons, you're still very active. Art lessons are very active, visual arts, music, dance. And that's part of what the Native American Curriculum Initiative is focused on, is how do we allow this? Because so many people are trying to, it's such a catchphrase now, but they're trying to decolonize their curriculum, right? And I have opinions about catchphrases, obviously, by the way I said that. But even with that, it becomes difficult, because what if you don't have the resources, right? I want to do this, but an organization that I will not point a finger at has some Native American lessons, and they're like, build a teepee out of popsicle sticks and paper. That's great, but do they know that not every tribe uses teepees? And in fact, it's only a select group of tribes that uses teepees. Is that incorporated into that lesson? It's not in that lesson, but it is with ours. Not that we don't have one on teepees right now, but any lesson we do, or do we?
We are in the process of writing one.
Yes.
It's a long process, but it is in the process of writing a collaborative teepee building process at the request of the Northwestern Band of the Shoshone Nation, who did use teepees.
Wonderful. And see, that's what's so exciting to me about these lessons, is because it's not just, oh, some Native Americans did this. Instead, it's like, hey, this is what it means. This is where it comes from. And we can correct mistakes that have been perpetuated for generations, especially through Hollywood and other things like that. where it's been people trying their best to imitate and without going to the source. And so we have these lesson plans where you can go to the source, and not only go to the source, but you can bring them into your classrooms and do it correctly. And that is so exciting to me, because it's not teachers trying to work with Google, because you know what? Dr. Google's degree is not necessarily a good one, right? And so you have teachers who are trying to Google, and now they can go and say, wait, I know reliable resources that not only have been created by educators, but that have been created by Native American artists, and not just them, but also by leaders within these tribes, and then literally given a stamp of approval that this represents us well. So that TP lesson will have that check of approval from the Shoshone tribe. How exciting is that? Versus, hey, let's use popsicle sticks and a piece of paper and make something and say, well done, there's your celebration.
Yeah, that is what's really exciting about these lesson plans. Thank you for bringing that up, because we are, as an initiative, seeking to amplify Native voices in the classroom. But as an initiative that has been serving generalist classroom teachers for over 15 years, we also really listen to the teacher voice. And teachers have said that they are scared and they're not sure what to teach, because they hear that no, you can't like teach the hoop dance, or no, you can't lead a round dance, or no, you can't do the bear dance. And so then they're like, well, now if there's a no, I'm afraid to like do anything. And these lesson plans are really there to give teachers confidence that what's in this lesson plan can be taught. So what we're getting at is that there are tribal specific information for each tribe. And the example of building a teepee and calling that a Native American lesson, like that's a homogenized idea. That's saying, you know, all Native Americans lived in teepees, which just isn't true. So hoop dance in the lesson plan is described as an intertribal dance. And I'm interested how that's different from specific tribal dances.
There is Northern style, there's Southern style. There's different styles within each one because it's where they are. And so for some dances, like there's some dances that are more relevant in like Northeast, such as like smoke. And then there are other dances that are definitely more like for Navajo. Like there's Navajo dances that are just specifically Navajo. And so these dances, even though they're like shared, it's kind of the same way as like, as we share our hoop dance, we dance it, but it's not necessarily like everyone's going to go hoop dance. It's, you still appreciate it, but you don't necessarily need to go do it to appreciate it. You can appreciate it in other ways. And so with these dances, hoop dance is definitely more intertribal, same as like just powwow dances are definitely more intertribal, such as like jingle or fancy or grass. It's definitely something that a lot of people know now, but there's still dances that certain tribes do that is specific for them that they keep sacred, because you don't want to just give it to everybody. You could still share it and still educate people about it without having to give out too much, without having to share everything about you.
And I think the key from what Kelina said is that it's purposefully shared. So like jingle dance, we know where that started and how with the Ojibwe tribe. But the thing that makes that dance so powerful is they felt it was so important. It's a healing dance. It's so important that they wanted to share it, right? Hoop dance, we were working with a couple of years ago, pre-COVID, we were working with a choreographer from the Iroquois. And he was telling me about a missionary who was Navajo who came to their reservation and saw that the kids were dancing, and Bill was one of these kids. And so they didn't want to learn about it. They were happy with the Roundhouse religion, and his family still practices that religion. But the missionary came back the next day in his jeans. So instead of like dressed up, he was in his jeans and a t-shirt with his hoops. And Bill had never learned hoop dance before. And so he was like, hey, do you guys want to learn? And so there was a purposeful sharing. And I think that is what makes these intertribal dances so exciting. And then with the powwow circuit, they now just like every other dance style in the world, right? They evolve. And so the powwow circuit is many of these intertribal dances. So then that becomes its own, a whole nother art form because it's being shared and universally known. But I think it's also important to know there are some dances that maybe multiple tribes do that are not intertribal. So an example of that would be eagle dance. Many tribes do eagle dance, but it's not intertribal. Each of these tribes has their own version and own reason. So for some tribes, my group can perform the eagle dance. There are certain nations where I will not, because I've been asked not to, because for them it has a different meaning. It's a different style, different music. And so even though to some people they may look very similar, they're not. But when I see it in multiple places and it's not intertribal, then I say, oh, I wonder what truths are found there when you see it done for different reasons in different places, in so many places.
Okay, so for our final question, please share anything else that you would like to share, but also maybe touch on how hoop dance is an example of how culture is alive and thriving and evolving.
I guess I'll say something then, because I am active in doing the hoop dance. And hoop is something that I think it catches the eyes of all. It's something that not many people see on a regular basis, but with the way that it's alive, with culture, how culture is alive is just by continuing. It's by that purposeful sharing of it keeps it alive, because it keeps it ingrained with people. You have that experience, and if you have such a good experience with it, you want to know more. And so with this education, with these plans, they get to have that. They get to have that little bit and be able to really apply it to themselves. It is keeping it sacred, but it's more than just keeping it like gatekeeped and locked. But it's sharing it with that purpose of we're here, and we're here to showcase who we are in a beautiful way that other people can have that sense of identity. And we love to dance. We love to share our emotion. Many people, there are dances around the world, and like every culture, there is dancing. That is part of the Native culture, and we share who we are through our dancing.
And the thing that I think is exciting for me is that the people who we see doing the dances. So you'll notice the resources that we utilize for the lesson plans, especially if they come from Living Legends, are purposefully actively engaged young adults. These are all students. They're all active in their communities. And I don't mean just active in their cultural communities, but they're active in their university community. They're working at some of them at the mall, some of them other places, right? These are people you would see anywhere in the world where you're like, oh, this is a marketing major. Oh, this is a neuroscience major. Oh, this is a like fitness and nutrition major. Or like you can be anything and do anything and be from any of these cultures, right? And I think a lot of people look at these dances like, oh, that's really cool. Way back when, and they look at these dances like, oh, they're just trying to keep tradition alive. And it's more than that. It is an exciting part of the lives of active and educated youth and young adults. And they are in our communities, right? They meaning these young adults, because I am not young anymore. But they're in these communities, and this is still growing, still evolving, and still exciting. And so that, I think, to me, just seeing this age group do our dances, to me, is one of the keys. Because then our kids can see these lessons or watch these or have somebody come into their classroom and say, oh, I see myself in this person. Maybe we have different eyes. Maybe we have different skin or hair or whatever is different. Or maybe we have similar eyes or hair or skin. Who knows? But I can see somebody that I want to be like. I can see somebody who it's like, wow, look how amazing. Sorry. I love them a lot.
But look how amazing this person is, and I can be like them, and how much their culture means to them. Hey, maybe I should find out more about mine. And so then hopefully that helps to not just keep these dances alive, but helps others understand how to find their own and keep it alive as well.
So I'll share a little bit of a different take on how the culture is alive and evolving, because I am an observer of it. I am not a participant in it. So just doing lots of research, we've seen how the hoop dance slowly became more public. It was in the 1930s that it was performed publicly for the first time by a dancer named Tony Whitecloud, Jemez Pueblo. And the World Hoop Dance competitions weren't even started until the 1990s. Hoop dance was originally only done by men as a healing dance, but women are allowed to hoop dance now. And in 1997, the first woman became a hoop dance champion in the teen division. Her name was Ginger Sykes. And in 2000, a woman, Lisa Ojig, became the first female hoop dance world champion in the adult division. So they are competing against the men in these divisions. As we're looking at this, it's important to recognize that the process of it being danced has evolved, but the purpose behind it has not. That has stayed the same. It is always a healing dance, first and foremost, and the respect for the dance is always there. So those are ways that it has evolved, but we need to recognize that no matter which tribal nation I've gone to, no matter who I've gone to, one of the biggest things that they want to share is that they are still here, that they are alive and they are thriving, that it is not something from the past. It is something that is today. They obviously live in normal houses. They wear normal clothes, and recognizing that when they wear their regalia, it is part of who they are still, but they are part of culture today. And it's just this constant evolution that is organic, because culture is organic. It is changing. And just as I've talked with hoop dancers, Patrick Willie was telling me about hoop dancers who use different types of music. Nakota Lawrence, who is a very well-known hoop dancer, included hip-hop moves in his dancing. And Patrick was telling me about how Nakota's sister was hoop dancing to classical music because of the purpose that she was trying to dance for at that time. And so you have different types of music being used, you have different dance moves being created to express the individual dancers' ideas and their what they want to communicate. And they come back to traditional things, but it changes over time.
Thank you, all three of you. I just want to echo the theme that came out in all of your three final responses, and that is that idea that Native Americans want people to know that they're still here, that when they dance, especially the hoop dance, it's not just an expression. It's not a performance of past culture. It's an expression of current lived experience and culture. And I think this is where we cue the Michael Gross song that he performed at the Bear River Massacre ceremony, because it's a beautiful song that echoes that message. So
we're still standing here, and we must all forgive, but we must not forget the spirits of our dead remain with us today, 'cause we're still standing here.
thank you so much for being here with us today and taking time out of your school schedule and your teaching schedule and your working from home and staying at home with your kids' schedule. It's really a blessing to be with you guys. So thank you, listeners, for being here with the Artful Teaching Podcast. We will have links in the show notes to all of these amazing Native American lesson plans and the hoop dance lesson plans. So thanks for being with us. And as always, have an artful day.
Artful Teaching is made possible by the BYU Arts Partnership and the McKay School of Education. Thanks to James Houston for editing this podcast. Music was generously provided by Connor Chi, a Navajo Diné composer and performer.
And special thanks to all of the teachers who are changing lives every day while serving in schools.
If you like what you heard, please leave us a review. You can find all the show notes for this episode and more resources at advancingartsleadership.com.
And don't forget to check out our tribe-approved lesson plans on the website as well.
I'm Heather Francis.
And I'm Callie Phlox.
And I'm Brenda Bial.
Wishing you an artful journey.